Hello and welcome to the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm Joe Rimmer, and today, deadline day, I'm joined by Paul Gorst. How are we, Paul?
All good. Busy one, as always. But looking to get stuck into it, to be honest, because there's a lot to talk about.
You and I haven't long come in. Ready for a long night?
Yeah. I mean, even when Liverpool are quite quiet, it's still always busy and still always one or two loose ends to tie up and whatever else. But today there's actual things happening. So, I think we'll be here till certainly after midnight.
Yeah. A man who's been here for a little bit longer is Theo Squires. Theo, you've been here since this morning in Jurgen Klopp's press conference. How are you?
Bit tired, but we soldier on. As Gorst says, plenty to sink our teeth into. Keeps you going, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, we are coming to you live. It's just gone 5 o'clock UK time. And, I mean, anything could happen. So we'll try and keep this fairly tight to a tight half an hour or so because things are changing all the time. And let's start with some breaking news, Gorsty, from just 5 minutes or so ago, which was that Bayern Munich's deal to sign Fulham's João Paulinho is off, which leaves Liverpool in something of a slightly difficult position, doesn't it?
Yeah, so if you see me checking my phone, it's basically, I'm not checking my Instagram or whatever, I'm trying to see if people have messaged.
Taking selfies.
Yeah.
It's enough babies.
Just before we recorded, wasn't it, come out from Florian Plettenberg in Germany that João Paulinho's move from Fulham to Bayern Munich has fallen through. Bayern obviously determined to get themselves a number 6 through the door, and that's basically what has allowed Liverpool to bring Ryan Gravenberch in, isn't it? Because if they're getting someone in, then he's surplus to requirements. So the dominoes looked like they were falling into place for Liverpool on Wednesday, and then obviously yesterday they given the green light for him to fly to England for his medical. And then just as we're recording, it looks as though that could be a snag on Bayern's end. So we'll wait and see what happens with Liverpool, whether it's still all okay to go through or whether Bayern have second thoughts, or is it even at a stage where they're able to have second thoughts and basically reject it out of hand. We still don't know as we're recording, but that is part of the madness of deadline day. I mean, it never fails to amaze me the way teams leave it to the last hours to get the business done. But I think if you speak to people inside of football, they're able to offer you a little bit more of a kind of insight as to why it does happen. It's basically just a kind of domino effect of teams looking to do business, and you see it all throughout the food chain, don't you? The pecking order that's, teams need to get player A in before they can tell player B, and then that kind of has a knock-on effect right the way through. So we'll wait and see if this one affects Liverpool. Hopefully it doesn't, and Ryan Gravenberch does become the fourth midfielder through the door. But at the moment, I guess it's anyone's guess, because it's literally only just happened, hasn't it? It's only just broken.
I mean, is there just a bit of good faith involved for Liverpool and Bayern Munich now in terms of like Bayern? They've agreed all this deal with Liverpool. Do they let that go through? And also with the player as well, who I think is desperate to go, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, even without João Paulinho, Gravenberch has only played 10 minutes this season. He didn't feature in the Super Cup defeat to Leipzig. He didn't play in the 4-0 winning it to Werder Bremen. And he played 10 minutes against Augsburg last week, or was it last week? Recently, anyway. Yeah. So it's not like they absolutely, were relying on him if they didn't get someone else in. But Thomas Tuchel apparently has been insistent on getting a number 6, and Theo, you'll be able to speak to that a bit more, won't you? Because you spoke to Christian Falk, who's obviously very clued up at Bayern Munich, and I think he spoke to you a bit more about that, didn't he? But we'll wait and see what happens. Hopefully it's, the two deals are kind of a little bit irrespective of themselves at this stage, but it's not good, is it, when, the team who were looking to get in the player, that kind of falls through as you're looking to sort your own deal. So we'll wait and see, but it really is anyone's guess at the moment whether Gravenberch becomes a Liverpool player. Yeah,
well, Theo, you spoke to Christian Falk, who, for those who don't know him, is a Bayern Munich journalist. He's German, based in Germany. What did he have to say? Is it a case of, I thought you looked slightly worried when you saw the Paulinho deal fall through before. I don't know, having a conversation with him, does it make you think this one might not happen now?
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit pessimistic about it at the moment, to be honest. Like, Gravenberch is a player we know Liverpool have wanted for a long, long time. There have been talks pretty much all year long, really, weren't there? There were discussions, I think, with his agent back in January, and then they met his family in April. But Bayern didn't want to let him go in January. The only reason that's sort of changed is because the sporting director was sacked at the end of last season. But even then, they didn't want to necessarily let him go. They still thought it was a long-term project. Granted, he's not the first choice midfielder for them. But Thomas Tuchel has been adamant that he wants a number 6 midfielder, and this is what Palhinha would have been. They didn't have the funds to go and sign one off the back themselves because they spent 100 million on Harry Kane. Obviously, they tried to get Declan Rice earlier in the summer as well. So that's why they were willing to sacrifice Gravenberch to get Palhinha. But if you don't get Palhinha, you still want that extra body in midfield. It depends to what Bayern value it as here. Do they want that extra body knowing they're going to win the Bundesliga anyway? Like, they were pretty poor last year and they still won the Bundesliga on the last day. Or do they like to respect the player's wishes? Like, he's not going to be happy now if they keep hold of him when he's flowing through. He's got the move that he wants seemingly for so long. When it's all about Bayern were only going to sell him because they needed the money. Well, if you're not getting Palhinha and you suddenly don't need the money, so maybe they do want to keep hold of him for another 6 months. Like, we've seen that situation before with Liverpool, like the other way, like how dominoes fall together but then doesn't quite land the right way. We shall see, but it just depends on Bayern now whether they think we let him go, we'll do the best for the player, or we do what's best for us. If you were a Bayern fan, you'd want the club to be selfish. Yeah,
well, that's it. And I think surely the player has got a big say here. Surely he's really going to be very, very unhappy if this deal falls apart at the last moment. He's done his medicals, hasn't he? Pretty much everything is in place. I'd be surprised if he hasn't done club media and put his shirt on and all that, just so that they can hit the button when this all goes through. So surely, from his point of view, I mean, he's going to be a very unhappy. He's not going to be good to have around the camp, is he?
Particularly as he doesn't really play much for Bayern. It's not like he's going to be going back to Bayern Munich and he's being told that you're in at the weekend because playing whoever it may be. He's probably just going to be a reserve, isn't he, for the rest of the season? So he'll be desperate for this move to come through. And then, like Theo says, it's just a case of how nice do Bayern want to be about it. Football can be a ruthless thing, but do Bayern, kind of show a bit of good faith here? We'll see. But
Tuchel doesn't strike me as the type of guy. He's quite a tough guy, isn't he? I get the feeling he might just say, no, you're staying put. He's not like a Klopp who, I think if that was Liverpool, Klopp would probably let the player go.
I think so, but
unless it's not Phillips.
That's no point.
It depends on how much of a say he has. I know kind of Bayern restructured their sporting director side of things, the Neil Summer, Oliver Kahn, and there's a Salihamidzic basically sacked within minutes of them winning the Bundesliga as a kind of, we won the Bundesliga, but we shouldn't be winning in the final 15 minutes. Heads have got a roll. Not too sure how the hierarchy works there now, but
seems like Tuchel's got a bit more power this window, but then he won't going forward when they get a proper succession in place.
Yeah, so I guess it is just a case of how amicable Bayern want to be about it all, and that's anyone's guess.
I did ask Christian Falk if Liverpool's good relationship with Bayern could aid things. Obviously, Thiago, Mane, those deals, they were quite affordable for both clubs compared to prices in the market, and he basically said no. He said it's a business decision. Bayern would have sold them to Manchester United if they'd gone for McTominay instead of Palhinha. So you've got to think Bayern, when they're going to have eyes on the Champions League, they're going to be selfish. They're going to be putting themselves in, well, we want to do this, and this, make it covered as well as we can be. Gravenberch isn't part of the plans. Like, there was a press conference Tuchel's done recently. He's gone through his midfield options and he didn't even name Gravenberch. So in his head, he's gone. Like, he said that in his press conference today, pretty much. He said that it's clear what the outcome's going to be. I'm sure when he said the outcome was clear, he thought he was getting a number 6 in. So he's feeling the same now a few hours later.
I suppose just before we move on, we should clarify that none of this is Liverpool's problem. It's not a Liverpool issue that we're talking about here. It's just a kind of knock-on effect. And that's what you leave yourself open to, I guess, on deadline day. But at the moment, as far as we're aware from Liverpool's end, everything's still proceeding as you'd expect and you'd hope.
It's like when you're buying a house, you get stuck in a chain. Something falls through further along, just waiting and see.
Leaving you sweating. I mean, in terms of Gravenberch, we haven't really discussed him, I don't think, in detail on the pod. Some Liverpool fans might remember him from a couple of years back when Ajax played Liverpool in the Champions League. But, I mean, he looks like one of those multifunctional, very modern midfielder, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned it on another pod about this kind of uproar that Liverpool weren't targeting another number 6 once they got Endo through the door. And a lot of that, I think, was just semantics. I think when you're a player who plays in a Jurgen-Klopp midfield, particularly at Liverpool, I think you've always got the capabilities of playing in 2 or 3 positions in that midfield. Jordan Henderson did it, didn't he? Number 6 or number 8, and Thiago's done it. Gini Wijnaldum, perfect example. So I don't necessarily think that Gravenberch is coming in, and that absolutely means that Liverpool have only bought the one number 6 or defensive midfielder, if you like, in old money. And I think he's young enough to be moulded and kind of remodelled into that defensive midfielder if Klopp wishes. He's certainly done it before with, you know, the likes of Firmino and Wijnaldum, like Joe says, perfect example. Cody Gakpo at the moment is doing it, isn't he? Obviously made his name as a left-sided forward, and he's being more of a number 9 and even a kind of midfielder at some point. So there is the potential there to remould Gravenberch into kind of what Klopp wants. But we'll see if he does want more of a defensive-minded midfielder, or whether he wants him to play his natural game as a more box-to-box number 8. So I think he's got loads of upside, really. You know, he's only young. I think if he hadn't have had this stalled year at Bayern and he was coming directly from Ajax at the age of 21, with what he'd done at Ajax already behind him, I think there'd be loads of excitement around him.
Yeah, that's what was interesting about Thomas Tuchel's comments earlier, because we've always assumed Gravenberch comes in, you mould him into a number 6, and it's in this new formation, the box midfield. Yeah. Tuchel said he's got this opportunity to go and play in a 4-3-3. I'm speaking to Christian Falk. He said Gravenberch is more of an 8 or a 10. I think, well, where does he fit into this? Because the result from Germany is still Jurgen Klopp sees him as perfect for Liverpool's formation. He's a perfect player who will suit it as much as any other player he's had in the past. So it's like, well, how is that going to click into place when you've got McAllister, Szoboszlai? Is Endo first choice, or are you wanting Trent to be more of that defensive midfielder? Where would Conor Bradley's role be in this if he wasn't injured at the moment? Like, we've not really had a chance to fully see what the plan is for Liverpool this season because of injuries, because transfers haven't been in the door, and now this transfer sort of been up in the air just adds to that uncertainty.
I just wonder whether it's get good players in the door and we'll sort it out as we go.
Yeah. I think there's an element to that. It's about options. At the end of the day, whether Liverpool play with 3 in midfield, with the box midfield, they will go from having, I mean, let's look through the midfield options. If they get Gravenberch, it will be Gravenberch, who's 21, Szoboszlai 22, Alexis McAllister 24, Endo's 30, Basetic is still 18, or is he 19? 18.
Thiago
32.
So it's quite a nice mix.
22,
22,
Elliot 19,
yeah.
20.
It's quite a nice mix, isn't it, of young players with a couple of older ones to try and help them gain experience, and all players who can really, like you say, feature in a lot of positions. I think, I mean, I was going to ask you in a bit, so I'll come to it. I'll come to it later. But I think that's quite a decent midfield options if Liverpool can get Gravenberch.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of maybe it's a targeted evolution, or maybe it's just been a gradual one through accident more than anything. But Liverpool's midfield now is more, more ball oriented, if you like, as opposed to when Liverpool were at the best of Fabinho, Henderson, and Wijnaldum. It was very much pressing from the front, getting the ball to the forwards as quickly as possible. Now, a lot more comfortable in possession, you'd say, with the likes of McAllister and certainly Szoboszlai and even Trent in there, and Thiago obviously when he comes back. So I think maybe it's a little bit of an evolution in terms of Liverpool's midfield this summer, and maybe they're thinking he can dominate possession more than he ever have. Yeah,
I think as well, if you look at the 4 signings, again, this is based on Gravenberch joining, but if you look at Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, so it's 40 and 60, 100 million, 35 for McAllister, 15 for Endo, so 150 million for 4 players. I mean, take the previous summers out of it, where I think Liverpool haven't planned well, and I'd still stick to that. I don't think they planned well. I think they put themselves in a difficult position. But this summer, what they said they needed to do was get several bodies rather than a Jude Bellingham, who, okay, cost an initial fee of 88, 90 million. But probably agent fees, wages, everything else involved, you look at probably 100 plus, aren't you? Caicedo, 1 million. Wages, agent fees, again, a lot of money. Throw Lavia into that. Liverpool have got 4 midfielders, 150 million. And 4, I mean, I don't think, put it this way, I'd rather have the 4 that Liverpool could get if they get Gravenberch as well than a Caicedo and a Lavia, personally. So just the Caicedo.
I mean, I think Szoboszlai is going to be a really top quality signing. Delighted with McAllister. We all knew what he was about, didn't we? World Cup winner and the star of that Brighton team. The Brighton team that finished 6th in the Premier League, and Caicedo. I mean, I think if you'd have given me those 4 options at the beginning of June, probably would have asked you who Endo was, but generally
You've asked me who the other three were.
I wouldn't have grumbled too much. The Caicedo thing was bizarre looking back. It was only 2 weeks ago, but it seems so long ago now and so surreal. But I think what Liverpool might hopefully do end up with it will be. I don't think too many can grumble. Certainly midfield-wise, we can talk maybe separately about the centre-back issues, but midfield-wise, the midfield rebuild looks okay to me.
Yeah. Well, Theo, quickly before we move on from Gravenberch, what did Christian say? Why did he struggle in Germany?
He said basically they've got so many midfielders who are number 8s that you've got to get past Goretzka, you've got to get past Thomas Müller, Kimmich, Musiala, and if you don't come in and hit the ground running, then you're playing catch up there.
Yeah.
So it was always hard for him there. Obviously, he's brought in as the sporting director's player. Of course, you can say the name for me. It's the Serbian guy who I can't say. Hassan, what's his face?
Oh, Salihamidzic.
There we go. That's the one. So, like, if he was brought in for one regime and then the manager goes and he's not quite clicking, it's not a good season for Bayern. We saw it with Sadio Mane as well. He was one sporting director signing and a different manager, and this is a player we all know the quality of, and it didn't click at Bayern Munich. Then a new regime comes in and it's, we're not really part of the future. The only reason it's a bit different with Gravenberch is because he's 21. You can still turn that around. But Christian Falk's opinion was still, if you're not going to do it in your first season at Bayern, you're not going to do it at all. Like, they've got to be ruthless. As much as they like long-term projects, it is win the Bundesliga, try and win the Champions League every year.
That's why they signed Kane to win the Champions League, isn't it?
They're a lot more short-term in their thinking, aren't they, I suppose, than Liverpool or some of their rivals in the Bundesliga. Theo, you were at Jurgen Klopp's press conference today. I mean, in terms of other signings, and a lot of us, certainly myself and Gorst included, I hoped they would sign a centre-half, but Jurgen Klopp sort of probably killed that within the first few hours of the deadline day. Yeah,
he said he didn't want to kill off the deadline day excitement, but not to get carried away. It seems like Liverpool are going to have to wait for that option. It's a situation they've been in before, isn't it? If the right signing is not there, they are happy to wait. They've still got Joel Matip for another year of his contract, presumably. And it just looks a bit, I suppose at the moment when you're going into this weekend without Konate, without Van Dijk, you're down to the bare bones of a Matip and Gomez partnership, which was so awful back in January, February, when they were like losing 3-0 away at Wolves and all this. But Gomez did look good from what I've heard at Newcastle last week. Matip's had a reasonable pre-season. It's still a good backup centre-back partnership, and there's no reason why Gomez can't push on again. But if you've got this new Liverpool formation where it's essentially 3 centre-backs, you want 5-6 quality options there, and Liverpool don't have that. Like, Andy Robertson is not a centre-back. He's very much like a square peg in a round hole, trying to get him to work there. So whether you change the system now because you haven't got it, but Liverpool seem happy to wait. Like, if Levi Colwill had said he was leaving Chelsea, he wasn't going to sign, right, maybe that's a deal they look to do. Like, they've been links with the Ecuadorian lad at Leverkusen. It seems like they weren't happy to let him go now. Maybe that's something they can revisit down the line. But it's still got youngsters there like a Luke Chambers, who could maybe come on if he doesn't get a loan move in the next few hours. There's younger players there who get their chances in the Europa League. That maybe means it's not as much of a dire situation in 6 months' time when the January window opens.
I suppose the one thing you would say is that the Europa League doesn't bring the pressure of a Champions League. You're not looking at Liverpool to play. No, people aren't going to grumble if you play those sorts of players in Europa.
Or Endo could play centre back as well.
But I would say, and Gorst, you and I were chatting about this in the car on the way in. You just said if they don't get the right man, they'll wait. Don't you think it's time Liverpool start to rethink what the right person in terms of transfers is? Because we've heard this over and over and over again, and it always bites them in the backside. I mean, that they wanted Levi Colwill. Well, I look at Levi Colwill and think, well, Liverpool, surely they must have known, and I'm sure they speak to agents and stuff, so they get a little bit of encouragement. But surely they must have known his first choice was to stay at Chelsea. And if Chelsea want to keep him, I mean, you've got to think that Chelsea probably wouldn't want to sell him to Liverpool anyway, because they're a rival.
Agents lie.
Agents lie. Agents
Liverpool just got as well. Brighton had a 30 million bid rejected, didn't you?
And you throw in, look at what happened with Caicedo. Agents lie. Agents use clubs. And obviously, his agent wanted to go to Chelsea and say, this lad is a man in demand. Liverpool want him, buy him, want him. Get him signed down to a contract, or we'll talk to those clubs. And I just think, I can't believe that Liverpool have put themselves in a position again where we could be looking 6 months down the line going, Why didn't they sign a centre half?
I mean, it was hugely admirable for years, wasn't it? The right player stance. It brought in Alisson, it brought in Van Dijk.
Since then, though, who's it brought in?
Well, exactly. That's the point I was going to make. Aurelien Tchouameni was the right man. He's at Real Madrid, and Jude Bellingham was the right man, and he's at Real Madrid, and Caicedo was the right man, and he's at Chelsea, and to a lesser extent, Romeo Lavia, and he's at Chelsea. So I think you're right. I do think this idealistic thing of Liverpool can only sign players who absolutely have to be here for 5-6 years and have to have the best years at Liverpool and have to be, the potential to develop into world stars in the way, what Salah or Mane has, will have. I think sometimes there has to be a little bit more of an agile plan, because Liverpool don't need a Virgil van Dijk to come in, do they? No. They don't need, a superstar centre back. They just need someone who's going to provide a little bit of cover, a little bit of quality at a time or in an area where there's question marks beneath the surface of Konate and Van Dijk. I mean, I'd love Joe Gomez to get back to 2020 levels, but it's been 3 years since he's been anywhere near his best, and there are dozens of reasons for that. And we could say the same for Joel Matip. It's been a while since he's been at his best as well. So a lot is riding on that. And I also think as well, if you've only got 4 senior centre backs, it's time to make a decision one way or another on this fangled box formation. What is Trent Alexander-Arnold now? Is he a number 6? Is he a number 66 who has to play right back and centre mid? I just think there's a little bit of muddled thinking there with Trent, and it worked to an extent, didn't it, towards the back end of last season, that Liverpool playing again, looking a lot more creative and a little bit sturdier at the back, but it asks a lot of Konate on the right side, and he's already pulled up with an injury because of that, because obviously Liverpool were playing with 10 men against Bournemouth. So it's time to decide for me, one way or another.
I think as well, to me, the getting the right man thing, that kind of works if you're Man City and you're on top.
Yeah.
And every year you just change 1 or 2. But when you're battling, and Liverpool put themselves in a position now, I think, because when they were on top, they didn't get the right man. Now they're battling to get back up to the top. They have to take more chances because there's increased competition. The right men are going to choose clubs who are, like Real Madrid, like Man City, and they, Liverpool don't stand a chance, I think, if Real Madrid are in the race, because 9 times out of 10, a player will choose Real Madrid over Liverpool.
Well, that's not even the issue anymore. Like, they've been up against Chelsea so many times and lost this summer, and that's a club not in Europe at all. He's nowhere to start there, is he? But Gorsty's just gone through players that are waiting for the right one. Well, Alisson, they waited 3 weeks before it was suddenly available again. So Karius could make a couple of mistakes in pre-season. There was nothing riding on that. Right. Whereas we saw how poor they were the first half of 17-18 defensively at times. And Van Dijk came in, transformed everything overnight, seemingly got them to a Champions League final, and they're in that position of strength. But when have they made a transfer like that since? Like, you look at other deals, Salah wasn't first choice, Mane wasn't first choice. They found these alternatives who were the right players who did work, and they're like, they were much better than Mario Götze or Julian Brandt in hindsight. Now, if you
don't understand why. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't understand why Liverpool. I mean, I'm sure they are. I'm sure if anyone worked for the recruitment team and listens to this, they'd be pulling their hair out. But I would love to know the conversations, because, like you say, those players were, as far as we know, second choice. Julian Brandt, they go and get Salah. Who was the first choice? Goethe, of course. They go and get Mane. Surely Liverpool would look at it going, we've got several players on the list here, unless they couldn't get any centre back. But surely going into the start of the summer, they must have known we need a centre back. And the other thing that frustrates me is it's almost like they can't work on 2 deals at once.
Yeah.
It's like, if they can get Gravenberch done tonight, then we'll go, we've got 2 hours left. Can we start talking about centre backs? I mean,
the talk with a centre back as well was they wanted this young 5th choice player. Well, why don't you just move Joel Matip on and get someone who's going to be a starter, and then have Jurel Quansah as the young centre back? Because at least then you're protected for the future with Van Dijk for a couple of years, as you'd like Salah to do. Instead, you're looking at a couple of fragile centre backs who've all got injury issues in the last couple of seasons. And you've gone from Nat Phillips as your 5th choice, who, while he isn't the perfect Jurgen Klopp centre back, he's at least comes in, does a job whenever he's turned to now a teenager who's very talented, but he's had half a season on loan at Bristol Rovers and now 1 substitute appearance. And while he did well against Newcastle United, say Gomez or Matip gets injured against Villa at the weekend in the first 20 minutes, you've got to throw Quansah on then. Kanate's out for a while. Van Dijk gets an extended suspension because of his mouthing off at the officials, and you've not signed a centre-back. You're down to Gomez and Matip, or Matip, sorry, and a teenager. This is a big ask there.
Really, really quickly, because there's so much to discuss and we haven't got too much time. Is there anything happening?
No, nothing major. Just, according to our colleague Ian Doyle, who's out there working hard, the Gravenberch deal is irrespective of the Polina one. So it looks like, everything is still on course for that one.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Really quickly, because there's plenty of other things to talk about, and we can continue to talk about them in a minute. Van Dijk, do you think deserves a bigger ban? We won't debate the red card again because we've debated it, but taking into account the red card, that's gone. On top of that, deserve a bigger ban.
If you're doing it on the new rules where you're trying to clamp down on all this, yes. But when you look at how floaty the official was last week, shall we say that, then no, I suppose you've got to give him a bit of good grace. But I'd imagine he's going to get an extended suspension.
Just another match.
Yeah. Just something in from the FA who have updated us on the Van Dijk situation. They're yet to, detail of Liverpool have responded. They obviously had till today, didn't need to do that. You wonder whether Liverpool have forgotten about it all with everything else that's been going on. It'd be a shame to see him miss 2 games. I think Liverpool needs to probably take the medicine on this one and just accept that. And he misses Villa and then regroup for after the international break against Wolves, is it? Yeah. So,
but I mean that he will miss Wolves as well, won't he, if he gets an extended ban? That's the question.
Yeah.
Do you think that he should get an extended ban? I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, initially when it happened, I'd say James Parkham obviously tweeting about the sending off and whatever else. So I didn't actually see the reaction initially, but he was very angry when he come off the bench and come towards the bench. That was right in front of us at St James Park. And
you won't have seen, but as he walked down the tunnel, I think the fourth official sort of gave him like a sort of come on, off you go type pat, and he turned around and sort of said, "Don't touch me," and then beep. Yeah,
it takes a lot to get Virgil on like Ryan. We speak to him most weeks, and it's always quite cool. Whatever question you throw at him and whatever games it is that's happened. So he would have been hugely wound up there. I mean, I hope not. I hope it is just a 1-game ban, but could be the 2.
Yeah, I think what you've just said, I think Liverpool have to take their medicine and Van Dijk has to take his medicine on this, and I think it probably will and should be another game ban. I wouldn't go further than that.
Yeah, but also as well, I hope some consistency is enforced.
This becomes the problem, doesn't it? And I think for football fans, and I don't get into conspiracies about referees, but I do think if you want to stamp out the way referees are spoken to, and they are spoken to very, very badly by players who may or may not have reasons to be frustrated. But if you want to stamp that out, you've got to dish out a ban. But for all that, you can't have linesmen elbowing players and then just do a Zoom call.
Wasn't the VAR officials for these last 2 games without the 2 red cards? It has been Constantine, hasn't it? He's been the assistant on it. Has Anthony Taylor been the other one?
As a fan, I find it hard to accept that you can have an official aim and elbow, and irrespective of what Robertson, I'm sure, was giving him, aim and elbow at a player, which is clear. We can see it on video evidence, and then just have him call the player and say sorry, and we just go, okay, that's done. Because otherwise, can Van Dijk just call the referee and say, that was frustrated, heat the moment, and we all go, okay,
set up a little Zoom,
everything's fine, exactly. And I think for fans, it's the same with Joe Linton waving cards, Anthony Gordon kicking the ball away. If you're going to do it, you have to commit to it. You can't just do the ones that the referee spots. You have to. Everyone has to get a yellow card for kicking the ball away. I mean, early in the first game against Chelsea, didn't Trent get booked for time wasting?
Because Arsenal had a red card because the second, was it one of the yellow cards was because of time wasting?
I thought that was absurd in the first half. You
just get bogged down in the laws. I mean, there's nothing I find more tedious than moaning about referees, but
no.
Every year they bring in new guidelines and they always enforce it strictly to the letter for like the first 6 weeks and then it kind of just fades away sort of after Christmas, doesn't it?
Trent's been booked twice now. Yeah. Do you get booked in the middle game? But he's certainly been booked twice. He could serve a 1-match ban, and 2 of them bookings will have been throwing the ball back on the pitch. It didn't exactly lob it away to delay the free kick and taking a throw-in against Chelsea. I mean, that is absurd to me. And I think there'll be so many other players, like you say, that won't get booked. Why can't they tell referees, maybe this is a problem, to act with common sense.
Yeah,
To say,
yeah.
if you think they're genuinely time wasting, which you see all the time in the last 20 minutes of the game, then book them. But if it's a player looking to find another player from a throw-in, don't be daft.
Well, Tommy Asu got booked in against Crystal Palace for Arsenal because
He wasn't the first one to take it, was he?
Perceived time wasting. And then he got sent off in that game because of it. The second one was just so, I think he dragged back, I can't remember who it was, not Jordan Ayew possibly. And it was just two of the most ridiculous red cards you'll ever see. And then he's suspended. That was that Arsenal persuasion. You'd be absolutely furious with it. But I think Liverpool should probably do it a couple of weeks now where they just don't get embroiled in anything with the referees. It's been going on now for a few months, hasn't it? Whether it's Constantine had to dash his elbow and Robertson and all the fallout from that.
Yeah.
Klopp celebrating in front of John Brooks' face, and then they put the Paul Tierney gate, shall we call it? And then already we've seen McAllister all at it, and then
it's doing them no favours. It's not like this whole. I always think it's a bit of a myth. The Jose Mourinho, Alex Ferguson style, like everyone's against us. I don't think that always necessarily works. If it's certainly not working for Liverpool, I don't think anyway. Look, we'll move on quickly from referees and just we'll start wrapping this up just in case anything should happen. But I want to ask you both: Liverpool get Gravenberch. Has it been a good window for Liverpool, Theo?
They've got to where they wanted to go in the end, but it's been a bit shambolic along the way.
So yes or no?
A cautious yes.
Cautious yes.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. It has at times been very different to what we've been used to from the Liverpool in the transfer market. Caicedo case was farcical looking back now. Through no fault of Liverpool's, I suppose, but the optics of that was a bit weird. And the Lavia, again, an odd one. Well, yeah, overall, I'd say so. The brief was a midfield rebuilding, and that's very much what they'll come up with.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the midfield, if they get Gravenberch over the line,
it does rest on Gravenberch, doesn't it?
Yeah. Really pleased with that if they get Gravenberch. If they don't, then they've just about done enough. If they do, then I think they've refreshed the midfield quite well and got some really good deals. They started the window so well. The centre-half thing, I think, could hang over this window longer than necessary. And I think ultimately they've coped well to deal with Saudi, and that's one thing we probably should just quickly address that we haven't talked about this before.
And we also haven't spoken about the Europa League draw either.
Yeah.
We did it live this morning in Europa.
Okay. Salah, 150 million rejected today, wasn't it? Unbelievable amount of money, really. That would make him the third most expensive player of all time, possibly.
Hasn't Doyle just said that 200's coming in?
Well, I think the Daily Mail are reporting 200. I'm going to counter your 150. It's an unbelievable amount of money. I don't think it is an unbelievable amount of money. And I don't mean that in a flippant. I kind of hate when people go, well, it's only 5 million, pay it. Because that's ridiculous. But if you take it in context of, I keep thinking to myself, Liverpool got 145 million for Coutinho 5 years ago. And all right, granted he was much younger. But I think the money that the Saudi League are throwing around, and if they're willing to offer wages of 1.5 million a week, then surely Liverpool should be saying, make an offer that makes us go, whoa, like 200 plus million, you're going, okay. Because there is no way Liverpool will say deal for anything that's less than 200 million on deadline day.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from that perspective. I just mean it in terms of like 150 million for one player. It's just remarkable. But for all the money that the Saudi Pro League is throwing around for the wages, they're not really backing it up or matching it with the transfer fees, are they? There's a report this summer you thought they paid a bit much for him.
Ruben Neves, the biggest one. They've got the lad from Lazio. Was that a big fee as well? They've got a couple of midfielders around 50 million.
They paid like 90 million for Neymar, which is probably the going rate. They don't fleece themselves.
He's the same age as Salah as well as Neymar.
31, Neymar, yeah. They don't fleece themselves. Trying to think. I mean, Fabinho, 40 million, maybe a little bit above his market value given the 12 months that he's had, but
not significant.
They're all in line, aren't they, with what you'd expect. If these players are being bought by European clubs, these are the sort of fees you'd expect them to be paying. So, this thing that the Saudis coming in and, you can't turn them down. It's the players who can't turn them down because they're the ones who would have their heads turned on the contracts.
Salah, we've got to look at it as well. Like, we always talk about an English premium when you want those homegrown players. They want that poster boy. They want the Muslim poster boy. You can go to the Arab world and say, we've got the best player from this part of the world, and he is playing.
Which I get, by the way, I get from his point of view. And I think if we were having this conversation,
for that as well.
and if we were having this conversation at the start of summer, it would be a lot different.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. I don't understand the optics of the whole thing, because who Al Ittihad, who have thrown money around all summer, is Al Ittihad?
Yeah.
Thrown money around all summer, has gone, tell you what, should we make a bid for Salah now? I mean, like, even if Liverpool wanted to accept it, they can't, can they? I mean, it would be a disaster if Liverpool accepted this one.
Yeah, no, it's far too late now. It's, you know, you're getting into the territory of there being a mutiny if they agree to this. And I said last week on the pod that I almost got the feeling that Liverpool were quite panicky about anything that might come through, because it gives them a decision to make. And it's a decision that goes straight to ownership level, really. If Mike Gordon sees that 150 million coming through the fax machine or whatever, the email, it's him and John Henry's and Tom Werner's decision to make, isn't it? And it's out of everyone else's hands. So, you know, so far they are rejecting it. They are standing firm in their insistence that he isn't for sale. I think maybe there's a school of thought that makes them think, well, we'll still get a similar fee in 12 months. Harry Kane's just gone for 90 million to a club like Bayern Munich, who historically don't pay those sorts of fees. So what will Ittihad be willing to pay in 12 months if the Saudi Pro League charm offensive is still going strong? I think that'll be a much more agreeable end to Mo Salah's career in 12 months.
So reports are saying like that the only reason now Ittihad have gone for it now is because they're not guaranteed to be getting him next year, because there'll be more Saudi teams who want him next year. I don't understand it from Mohamed Salah's point of view. Like, if you're staying now, just see out your contract. I know it's a lot of money, but you're staying at Liverpool because you want to play in the Champions League again. So you can understand that from his point of view. While he might just go, I've won everything now. I'll go now. Like, it's not the high you want, but you can go back to the Muslim country. You can be closer to home. You can be that big poster boy. But it's a strange setup. Like, Al Ittihad knew if they put this bid in 2-3 weeks ago when they first started talking about it, there would have been a conversation to be had. It's like almost like there's been accusations of the Caicedo bid being a PR one from Liverpool. Was this a PR bid from Saudi?
Could very well
they're
be,
not going to get it, but we'll at least try.
Could grease the wheels for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, Theo, do you get the feeling that Salah quite fancies this? I mean, his agent came out a couple of weeks ago and said that they were staying, but he hasn't come out and said it again. Salah has said nothing. He seems like, if Liverpool accept, I'll go. But if they don't accept, I'll stay. Is that the feeling you get?
Yeah, I think so. Like, he can see it two ways. If he stays with Liverpool, gets the back in the Champions League, then wins another Premier League or a Champions League, if he's got real faith in this project, he can leave as the third highest goal scorer in the club's history, one of the greatest ever players, a true Premier League legend. On a high, he's written it all. But then it's like, well, that's a lure for what any European fan would say. We'd say, stay at Liverpool, do this, do that. That is what you want to do. You want to win the Premier League. You want to win the Champions League. But if you're a player from that part of the world and you haven't had those opportunities to play in lucrative leagues, play for the biggest prizes, it's not where everyone wants to go, and suddenly it is where everyone wants to go, that is going to change your mind as well. Like, you are close to your family. Is that pride in doing it for the Arab countries and all of this sort of thing? I know this is a strange place to take it, but in Ted Lasso, they had like the Super League going along where this African owner came along and he basically wanted to sign the Nigerian player from Richmond, and it was that sort of thing. Come and play in an African country. We're going to get all the best players, and he turned it down because obviously they're writing wherever it goes. But this is where fiction.
Why did he stay? Did he stay at Ted Lasso?
Yeah, he stayed at Ted Lasso's team because he decided that was home.
That's nice, isn't it?
But yeah, it's like
spoilers for anyone.
So is this a case of life imitating art?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, it's for me. It's, you know, if I just look at Salah and think, he always struck me as similar in the Ronaldo and Messi school of, I'm going to keep myself in tip-top shape and play until I'm 36, 37, 38 and play at the highest level.
But now that could be the highest level.
Well, maybe it could, but it's not now.
No, and I think years of this kind of investments for it to be anywhere near, you know, the Premier League.
And if you sell it, who's to say you can't stay in Europe and win another Champions League, Premier League, Ballon d'Or? You know,
you've got that chance of the Ballon d'Or. You can't see a Saudi Pro League player winning the Ballon d'Or anytime soon.
No. I was speaking to you yesterday about it. I was having a conversation with someone who's Middle East based earlier this week about what's going on with Salah, and this particular person works with some of the clubs out there, and the feeling that they were given from Ittihad is we might not get Salah because of this desire to score all the goals and break all the records for Liverpool. And that he's never shied away from that, to be fair, has he? It's something he's always professed. You know, he wants to be
Yeah, well, gents, we have, my watch has gone off, so that didn't work. Well, we have several hours now to the deadline. We should wait and see whether anything else transpires with Mo Salah and whether Liverpool get that Gravenberch deal over the line. But we'll say goodbye for now. We'll be back Monday. We didn't even talk about Aston Villa, but such is the day.
Pretty much had a press conference as well. We didn't really talk about them either.
Well, we'll be back on Monday and we will discuss that Aston Villa game. And we will discuss much more besides. We will see you then. Thanks for listening. Ta-ra.